As soon as Trump starts targeting Iran's electrical power plants, everything on the other side of the Persian Gulf will be wrecked. And so my advice to people in these countries is to leave tonight.
Hey guys, I'm Bran. And listen, what just came out is not something you brush past. Professor Mirandi just delivered a very direct warning. He's saying if Trump targets Iran's power plants and gas infrastructure, the response won't stay contained. Everything across the Persian Gulf, oil, gas supply gets shut down. And once that stops, it doesn't stay over there. The global economy takes the hit, and it won't be small. But here's the part that should really get your attention. He told people in Qatar, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Bahrain to leave tonight, not tomorrow. Tonight, that's not random talk. That's a calculated message put out there on purpose. And if you're in the US, you feel this fast, especially at the pump. Hit subscribe and drop a like because here, we focus on what actually matters. Now let's get into it.
And in the coming hours, if Trump decides to strike Iran's critical infrastructure, Iran will force them to pay a price beyond their imagination. Iran is prepared for all-out war. It has not shown its true power yet. It is holding back. And all those family dictatorships in the Persian Gulf, in Qatar, these proxies of the regime in Washington, the Emirates, the Bahraini regime, the Saudi regime, the Kuwaiti regime, all of them, every single one of them, they are complicit in this war. They assisted the United States in slaughtering Iranians. They've been assisting the United States for all these years in all their wars, whether in Yemen or whether in Iraq. When they invaded Iraq, these countries, these regimes, they had funded Saddam Hussein in the 1980s. They gave him hundreds of billions of dollars. But when their masters in Washington told them to turn against Saddam Hussein, they did so immediately. So these regimes will pay the ultimate price within hours. As soon as Trump starts targeting Iran's electrical power plants, everything on the other side of the Persian Gulf will be wrecked. And so my advice to people in these countries is to leave tonight, because we don't know what this madman in Washington wants to do. He is completely irrational. He is moody. He has mood swings. He says one thing now, and he'll say something completely different in an hour from now. So we have no idea where he's going to go, but we're prepared for the worst. And we've already shown him that. The Iranians have already shown him that. When the Israeli regime struck Iran's critical gas infrastructure, with the consent of the United States, Trump is lying that he didn't know. The U.S. did know. If he personally did not know, that just shows how ignorant he is. But when they struck, Iran immediately hit back very hard, and Trump was forced to back off because he knows what this means. So if they strike Iran's critical infrastructure, that will be the end of oil and gas in the Persian Gulf. And the same is true for the regime in Baku, which is a close ally of the Israeli regime. Their oil and gas will no longer be exported in the near future. So Trump has to be very careful, because if this happens, then it no longer matters if the Strait of Hormuz is opened or not. If there is some sort of agreement, there will be no more oil or gas or petrochemicals, and no ships to take those non-existent oil and gas and petrochemicals. And that would lead to a global economic crash that the world has never seen in the last century. It will be far worse than 1929. And the world will know that this is Trump's doing, and it is all for Zionism. And if anyone asks, why is Iran striking back at these regimes? Because without their support, without giving the U.S. their airspace, without giving the U.S. their territory, without allowing the US to fire missiles from their territory on a daily basis, there would be no war today. So they are fully complicit. And Iran did not start this war, and Iran did not start striking infrastructure. Everything that Iran has done till now has been in retaliation. So hopefully the madman in Washington, someone will force him to comprehend that the price that he will pay for this is beyond imagination. But Iran is prepared. Iran will not back down. And it is waiting for the 48 hours to finish to see what it has to do.
So let's slow this down and really look at what Professor Mirandi just laid out. Because this wasn't emotion, and it wasn't someone trying to sound tough for television. This was structured, intentional, and aimed at a global audience. Every word had a purpose. Every country he named was named for a reason. And the people who need to hear it most are not in Tehran, they're in Washington. Now, to understand why this matters, you have to understand deterrence. This isn't about threats for the sake of threats. Deterrence works by making the cost of an action so clear and so believable that the other side decides it's simply not worth it. That's how nuclear deterrence held during the Cold War. Not because weapons were used, but because both sides understood exactly what would happen if they were. What Mirandi is doing here is laying out a cost scenario. He's saying if Iran's core infrastructure, its power, its gas, gets hit, the response won't be limited or symbolic. It will be regional. Energy systems across the Gulf, Qatar, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, become targets. Not accidentally, but deliberately. And once that happens, the ripple effect is immediate. No oil, no gas, no movement of supply, and the global economy takes the shock. The key question is whether decision makers in Washington are actually hearing this, and more importantly, whether they're factoring it in. Because one piece most people in the West overlook is the role of the Gulf states. They're often presented as neutral, but operationally they're not. The U.S. runs military bases across these countries, and those bases support airspace, logistics, and coordination. From Iran's perspective, that's not passive, it's participation. And if you're seen as participating in a war, you're no longer outside of it. Whether people agree with that logic or not doesn't change the strategic reality, it's how Iran appears to be framing it. Now, the leave tonight warning, that's the part people will dismiss as dramatic. But that deserves attention. Because striking energy infrastructure in that region doesn't just hit governments, it hits civilians. Power outages in those climates are not theoretical, they're dangerous. So that message can be read two ways, either as a warning to reduce civilian harm, or as pressure designed to force governments to reconsider their alignment. Both interpretations matter. But the most dangerous element here isn't even the threat, it's the unpredictability on the other side. Deterrence only works when both sides can read each other. If one side is unpredictable, inconsistent, or constantly shifting positions, then the entire system becomes unstable. Because you can't deter what you can't anticipate. And that's where the real risk comes in, miscalculation. Now on the economic side, the 1929 comparison might sound exaggerated at first. But when you actually look at how dependent global systems are on Gulf energy, it becomes harder to dismiss. Energy feeds everything: transport, manufacturing, food production through fertilizer. Disrupt all of that at once, and you're not looking at a single sector crisis. You're looking at a system-wide shock. And finally, there's the framing of retaliation. Mirandi's argument is simple. Iran is responding, not initiating. Whether people agree with that or not, the sequence of actions matters. Because how a conflict is framed determines how each escalation is justified. So here's the bottom line. What was just communicated is a clear picture of what escalation looks like from this point forward. If Iran's infrastructure is hit, the Gulf's energy network becomes the response target. And if that network goes down, the consequences don't stay regional, they hit globally and they hit hard. This is not about picking sides, it's about understanding cost, because history has already shown what happens when those costs are underestimated. Hit the like button, share this, and subscribe. Because this is one of those moments people need to actually understand, not just react to.